An empathic way of life. This will be a presentation on empathy. My name is Chelsea Thompson, and this is for empathy training for Colorado Christian University, class CSL 613. The topics that I will cover will be empathy in the New Testament, biblical examples of empathy, learning about empathy from the Apostle Paul, how faith impacts my views of empathy, and neurological implications on empathy as well. Empathy is relating to others and joining them in their experiences. We're not attempting to justify or find solutions. We're there to feel and accept what they are feeling. Empathy in the New Testament comes in many, many stories and experiences and verses throughout. One of the best that I relate to, or one that I have found that I really enjoy, was John 11:35. Simply stated, Jesus wept. This is something that I found to be pretty profound because Jesus knew that he was going to resurrect Lazarus. He knew that, the hurt and the pain that all of these supporters of Lazarus, his family and such, all of their pain that they were feeling, he knew that they didn't need to feel that way. And so he empathized so strongly with those who are mourning that he himself wept as well. Even knowing that the outcome was going to be happy and positive, he could still put himself in their position, recognize their hurt and their pain, and cry and mourn with them as well. The other that I really enjoy is Matthew 5:39, where it states, "I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. Anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you." This is just another great example of Christ showing us that, we may not know the whole story. We don't need to understand everything that's going on, but we don't want to pass judgment. We just want to empathize and experience and, have those experiences with those who are walking through them. God tells James that it's okay not to know. He says, I understand that you're going to have questions. The only thing I'm asking you to do is just be genuine, ask with genuine intent. And to me, this shows that God has great empathy in recognizing that we are going to wonder, we are going to want to have justification and want to have knowledge of our experiences. And God is feeling that is something he's there to support us through. We just need to ask him. And then, another great example of empathy would be Luke 10:36 and 37, where in Luke we listen to Christ tell us of the Good Samaritan. We learn it is of so much greater importance to aid all without judgment than to distinguish between who is deserving and who is not. We should react through empathy to provide support and care to everyone, and treat everyone as though they are our neighbor. One of the biblical stories that I found lacking in empathy was Job. In the first chapter of Job, we see him lose everything he loves. He loses his family, his home, his farm. However, he still has his friends. And these friends sit with Job, offering their presents to their dear friend who has lost everything. And this was a great show of empathy from them. Then it's as if they've forgotten how to empathize, and it all takes a turn when these friends decide that Job has sinned and sinners are punished. So they continue to ignore Job and ignore that, he states that he is a good man and he's done nothing wrong, and they insist that he must repent for whatever sinful deed he has done. They take away their empathetic approach by trying to solve his problems and find solutions to Job's sorrow. They try and justify the events that have happened and accuse Job, claiming that he must be the cause and the reason for his own misfortune. This is a complete lack of empathy on their part, where we just went from sitting beside Job for a week in silence, in mourning, and in support, to all of a sudden we're now trying to solve and resolve his problems and no longer recognizing his pain and grief, or accepting that maybe he didn't sin, maybe the events have happened for reasons outside of his control, and his friends just weren't very empathetic towards that. The Apostle Paul is a great example of empathy, and he has so many great statements on acting empathetically. He simply puts it, we celebrate with those who celebrate and we cry with those who cry. And this is the rawest form of empathy, in my opinion. It's just simply stated. We don't need to ask why. It's not for us to understand. We're there to support. As he goes on to say, if someone's hungry, feed them. If they're thirsty, give them a drink. And that's kind of the basis of empathy. If someone needs food, you give them food. You pray with someone who needs peace. You sit in silence with someone who is grieving. You're there to be present in those moments and in that emotion, be it celebratory or grief. Faith impacts empathy in my life every day. My faith has truly supported my ability to empathize with others in many ways. Knowing Christ has suffered to the extents that I have suffered, that he knows how I'm feeling, knowing that and having that faith and that knowledge really helps me get through my own struggles, and seeing how God uses what we go through to make us better people and give us the chance to empathize with others put in those same situations also. I also really love the commandment of just love one another. We're not there to fix or resolve, just love and support. And it's great to also recognize that the love I feel for others is just the same as Christ's love for others, and the way that, we support who they are without necessarily needing to agree with their decisions. We're just there to love and support one another. Something that I find really fascinating between neuroscience and empathy is that flight or flight response, or the sympathetic and parasympathetic responses in our brain. And, when we recognize this through a neurological as well as an empathic perspective, we can see that, sometimes these actions that people are experiencing or manifesting may not necessarily be out of malice or disregard. It's just simply that this is their way of reacting to things. This is how their brain functions in these circumstances, and a fight or a flight response doesn't need to be viewed negatively about the individual experiencing it, rather as a mechanism of coping. And I find that's really interesting to recognize that, especially in counseling, that these can be self-destructive loops that individuals can get themselves into, and utilizing positive interventions for that prefrontal cortex through engaging clients in a way that will help them have a better outlook or respond to these fight or flight responses more positively can be very beneficial. What I've learned throughout all of this is ultimately God is the greatest example of empathy, and he's always there. He's always going to support us and have that positive intervention in our lives, and I'm really grateful for that.